That was about 40, I think, 40 young people. Feel free.
So I really like that little logo. I'm wondering why you picked a nose but not fingers or feet or any of the other things that people might be sensing with.
Right. I mean, this is the thing, is that actually mostly people were talking about smell. So one of the things I'm really interested in is, when you just walk through a city like this, people talk about the sound of their own footsteps, because you actually have these things on your ears. You're kind of hearing your footsteps, but it's very rare you're feeling things. I mean, the only times people talked about touch was actually when they bumped into things. People walking past walls, for example. But mainly it was a sense of smell. And actually there was something quite odd when, we use basically sight and sound for navigation. So if you really take those two kind of main senses away, you're actually left with very little. And if you also don't really touch anything while you're going for a walk, it really is smell. And yeah.
Or their friend's arm, or
Yeah, they never talk about the friend there that's being led along.
there was one mention I saw that
Ah,
I
yeah,
felt
okay.
all right because they trusted their friend. And
Yeah,
things,
totally, yeah.
But I think it's interesting how this relates to movies because, movies are all about image and sound, and this is all about perceiving the world through basically the senses that don't get played with
Right.
through movies.
Right. Yeah,
So
I mean, totally. What I find kind of curious is how, in certain ways, kind of sensory overload is something kind of we really want to avoid. If you think of kind of in Guantanamo, they were doing two different things. They were kind of really playing very loud rock music to people when they didn't want to listen to it. On the other hand, they were depriving the sensation. Actually, the combination of the two, the extremes of the two, are really unpleasant. So having a choice over sensory input, and I think it's really interesting. So, why do we go to the cinema to kind of see these flickering images? I think it's really, it's a really curious thing. We want to be able to choose the films we watch. We don't really want to be made to watch films all the time. Anyway, that's my little bit, I think.
How did you get involved with the neuroscientists, and how did you start the project going on?
I'm doing one of these kind of science and art collaboration things, which is with this kind of very dodgy organization called the Wellcome Trust, which, if you actually know some inside kind of gossip about them, I'm very curious to know, because people seem to be very quiet about what they really do that's really dodgy. I mean, I just know they're very dodgy. So yeah, please talk to me about it. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, basically what, they're, if you like, the cultural wing of the kind of pharmaceutical industry. And they are interested in seeing how kind of cultural organizers kind of deal with these kind of things that are normally just the reserve of, scientists. And I do think it's a fascinating area. So actually, collaborating, in inverted commas, I mean, I think they have very rarely true collaborations, but...
Did you apply for one of these applications that they have?
Sure.
And okay.
I mean, it made sense for me, actually.
No, I've been quite interested. I've been looking at them, listening to their application process.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
why I'm interested. Yeah.
I mean, I think, I have nothing bad to say about the Wellcome Trust. They've been quite supportive of me so far. I mean, I'm just kind of curious if anybody's got any particular opinions on. I'm keen to know. I mean, I think what they're doing is quite interesting. I just think it's very sad that there aren't more kind of institutions kind of doing that kind of stuff. If you like, that it's those kind of people that are really funding that kind of research, I mean, why doesn't the Arts Council kind of deal with this kind of thing? Well, that's very true. That's very true. Okay, that's probably my time, unless anybody... Yeah, go on.
Why are they dodgy? So could you explain a bit? I don't know, I'm just...
Oh, why are they dodgy? Well, like I said, I don't 100% know why they're dodgy, except they're kind of big pharma,
No, go on. You.
The Wellcome Trust was it's now part of It's now part of GlaxoSmithKline. It owns a lot of shares in it, but it's completely separate. So it was created when Wellcome became a PLC, and it became a trust which benefited from. It gets its money, but it's not actually connected at all to any pharmaceutical, and has no say in any of the running of the drugs companies. But it's just gets an enormous amount of money, which is just kind of a legacy almost of the way that the Wellcome company, which is now part of GlaxoSmithKline, was created.
I mean, just on a slightly different kind of take on that, if you actually walk past the Wellcome Trust, there's a kind of a much more subtle kind of agenda going on, which is just a kind of a glamorization of science, I would say, which is perhaps more kind of interesting, much more background. You know, like there's a big kind of illuminated kind of glass display of people kind of sequencing genome stuff and looking for various blah, blah, blah kind of things. So I think there's a sense, you know, it's probably not very much different to the Science Museum, which actually also gets sponsorship from various kind of companies these days. There's also the Exploratorium in San Francisco, which is very different, and I can really recommend that as a model for how art and science can work together in a much more equal, interesting way.
I think if you get onto Corporate Watch or some of these people who make a business of telling the world exactly why a lot of these institutions and also the sort of cultural institutions that they support are dodgy, then you'll find a lot more detail. But my superficial impression is that they're dodgy because they present as like a cultural benefit and something like the Science Museum or whatever, but always there's this sort of bias towards, well, you want products of these kind of companies, you need to buy drugs rather than change your diet or think about a more holistic change to your health or whatever it is. It's a superficial impression of it.
That's it. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thanks, Christian.